Today, we're digging into something fascinating, a piece of superhero history that's kind of been forgotten. We're talking about the late 80s, early 90s TV series Superboy.
Yeah, and it's more than just, a nostalgia trip. It's really a look at this incredibly ambitious attempt to bring a huge movie hero to the small screen.
On a tiny budget.
Exactly. With all the creative challenges, the practical hurdles you can possibly imagine.
So, our mission today is to sift through, well, a whole stack of stuff. Mark Edlitz's big book on the show, lots of interviews with the cast, the crew. We want to figure out how this show trying to make us believe a boy could fly.
Despite everything working against it.
Right. And what its legacy really is, even if it's a quiet one. You might be surprised by some of the facts, the kind of aha moments around this unsung TV hero. Okay, so let's get right into it. How did Superboy, the TV show, even happen? Because now, movie heroes on TV, that's normal. Marvel, Star Wars, they're everywhere.
Totally normal now.
But late 80s, taking a character like that from the big screen, that was a huge deal. Almost unheard of, really.
It really was. The story kind of starts with the Salkinds, the family who produced the Christopher Reeve Superman movies.
The gig ones.
Yeah. And originally a producer named Peter R. Marino, he actually pitched a Superman series to Ilya Salkind.
Okay.
And Ilya, he was kind of open to it. But his father, Alexander Salkind, the one really in charge, he shifted the focus, said, let's do Superboy.
Why Superboy specifically?
Mostly, it seems, because the rights were available. It was a strategic thing. And then Viacom came in. They got the rights to syndicate the show.
Okay, so they get the rights, they had this idea, but here's where it gets kind of nuts, right? The ambition versus the reality of making TV back then.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, think about this. The first two Reeves Superman movies, the main filming took, like 18 or 19 months?
The year and a half, yeah.
An average Superboy episode, they churned those out in 5 days.
Sometimes less.
5 days? How do you even make a shirt about flying, about superheroes that fast? What did that mean for how the show looked, how it felt?
It meant basically a constant struggle against the clock, against the budget. The whole syndicated model itself was just this painstaking effort, as they call it.
Meaning what exactly?
They had to sell it station by station, market by market. No single big network deal like you'd get today.
Wow.
And Toby Martin, he was an executive at Viacom, he pointed out that back then, no company could own more than 7 TV stations. So getting national coverage was just a slow, hard grind.
And that directly hit the budget, right?
Absolutely. Less money overall.
Yeah.
Which is partly why they decided to shoot down in Orlando, Florida.
For the cost saving.
Yeah, it was a budgetary plus, supposedly. But production-wise, it turned out to be really tough.
Why tough?
Well, there just wasn't a big pool of experienced TV true talent there at the time.
Yeah.
They often had to fly people in from Miami, even L.A., to fill key roles. More cost, more hassle.
So, okay, you've got all these huge challenges. Orlando, the 5-day shoots, selling it piece by piece. But the goal was still the same, right?
Yeah, despite everything, the aim was always, as they put it, to thrill the audience and make them believe that a man or boy could fly.
Did they succeed? At least initially. What were the ratings like?
Surprisingly strong, actually, right out of the gate. It debuted October 8th, 1988, averaged a 6.1 household rating. That's about 5.5 million viewers each week.
That's pretty good for syndication back then.
Yeah, it was Viacom's top show initially, and it stayed pretty consistently in the top 15 for syndicated shows through that whole first season.
Okay, so decent numbers. People were tuning in. But numbers aren't everything. What about the critics? Did they agree with the viewers?
No, not really. The critics were, well, they were pretty savage.
Savage how?
The Los Angeles Times called it maybe the worst comic book to film adaptation to date.
Ouch.
Yeah. They slammed the special effects as laughably pathetic, and the acting is horrendous.
Wow. And the local paper? The Orlando one?
The Orlando Sentinel. They called it a super bust. Said the flying was low-tech and the effects were primitive.
Man, that's rough. Especially for the people working so hard on it. I read that John Newton, the first Superboy, he actually wrote this editorial defending the show.
He did. Supermail from Superboy. He admitted it wasn't perfect, it's imperfection, but he argued the fun aspect was the main thing.
Do you think that held water, though? The fun aspect outweighing the flaws? Or was that just, putting a brief face on it?
It's complicated because alongside the critical reviews, there's real audience frustration, too.
How so?
Remember that syndicated model? Selling station by station.
Yeah.
Well, in big markets like L.A., viewers complained the show got bounced around the dial. Different channels, different time slots week to week. made it really hard to actually follow the show consistently.
Ah, okay. So even if you liked it, you might not find it.
Exactly. And Toby Martin from Viacom, he suggested that because the show maybe didn't deliver for the audience right away,
Hmm.
those local stations pulled back or shifted their promotional efforts.
So they stopped pushing it.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And he called it the bittersweet truth, that even when the show got better creatively later on,
It's too late.
it kind of never recovered from the weaker earlier episodes. In syndication, those first few weeks are crucial. If you don't grab them then, it's an uphill battle.
That is tough. Okay, speaking of challenges, let's talk casting. John Newton as Superboy, Stacey Hyduke as Lana Lang. Both pretty new at the time, right?
Yeah, relatively inexperienced.
Yeah.
And Newton, he made a specific choice not to just copy Christopher Reeve.
Which you'd think would be good. Find his own take.
You would think.
Yeah.
But apparently Ilya Salkin wasn't thrilled with that. He kind of wanted that Reeve echo.
And Newton didn't stay long, did he? There were reports about why he left.
Right. It's been widely reported he was let go because of a DUI. But digging into it, the sources clarify it was actually a reckless driving ticket first.
Okay.
And then later, multiple tickets, even though he claimed he didn't have prior violations. But the real reason, according to Toby Martin anyway, wasn't just the tickets. It was that Newton wanted out.
He wanted to leave.
Yeah. Martin said he left the show. He wanted out. We weren't crazy about him, but we wouldn't have changed him had he not insisted on leaving the show. Apparently, he refused to keep going, so it was more like his contract was terminated because he wouldn't fulfill it, not strictly fired for bad behavior.
Interesting distinction. So enter Gerard Christopher for season 2.
Right. And he was different. Older 30 compared to Newton's 22. More experienced as an actor.
And he looked more like Reeve.
Definitely had a stronger resemblance, which was probably a factor in casting him. And this change, it wasn't just the lead actor. It kind of signaled a bigger creative shift for the show, too.
How so?
Season 2, they brought in some real comic book heavyweights to write. Guys like Cary Bates, Mark Jones, Andrew Helfer, Michael Carlin.
People who knew the source material inside out.
Exactly. And you could see it in the scripts. They started bringing in more engaging stories, really getting a stronger grasp of the character, moving away from some of the, let's say, less exciting villains of season 1.
And getting more into classic comic book stuff.
Yeah, much more. But here's something really surprising, especially given the low-budget kids show label it often got.
What's that?
The themes they started tackling were incredibly mature. Shockingly so sometimes.
Mature how? We talking like slightly grown-up problems?
No, I mean genuinely dark, complex stuff. Way ahead of its time for superhero TV, really. It was almost accidentally paving the way for the darker stuff we see now.
Okay, give me some examples.
All right. There was an episode, Bringing Down the House, about a rock star who is a sadist, torturing women, burying victims in his basement.
Whoa, on a Superboy show.
Yep. Then Terror from the Blue had corrupt cops running a prostitution ring. Stand Up and Get Knocked Down involved cocaine trafficking.
Years.
Seriously. There was an attempted sexual assault depicted in an episode called Hollywood. Lex Luthor, in one episode, casually recalls killing his childhood puppy.
Jeez.
In the episode Metallo, the villain cuts a doctor's throat on screen, which was called out as notably graphic for a children's show. This wasn't your average Saturday morning cartoon fare.
No kidding. That's unexpected. And did this depth extend to the characters, too? Beyond just the plots?
I think so, yeah. Stacey Hyduke, Lana Lang, she really pushed for the character not to just be the damsel in distress. She wanted Lana to be strong, tough, even, quote, save the day if Superboy can't.
Good for her.
And Tracy Roberts, who played Darla. She talked about evolving the character from just being this sassy, mouthy, sexy girl into someone independent, strong-willed, bold, and highly intelligent. So you saw growth, especially in the female characters.
What about the villains? Luthor and Bizarro are key.
Sherman Howard's Lex Luthor became this really memorable figure, a gleeful, malevolent genius, super colorful and larger than life, but genuinely menacing, too, not just a cartoon villain.
This is Bizarro.
Played by Douglas Barry Myers. And apparently the prosthetics were agony. He joked about how the harness grabs up, it goes into your manly parts, you can talk a little bit higher.
Chuckles slightly. Okay. Dedication. Or maybe just surviving the job. It does put the physical side of it into perspective, even on a show like this.
It really does. And this push for deeper stories, it really accelerated in seasons 3 and 4.
What changed then?
Well, Ilya Salkin stepped back from the day-to-day producing. Julie Pastor took over, and they made a big setting change. Moved from the college campus
To where?
to the Bureau of Extra Normal Matters, based in Capital City, which was basically their version of Metropolis.
Okay, more official, maybe.
And definitely darker in tone and setting. They even updated the opening narration, gave Superboy a proper origin intro, like the classic George Reeves' Adventures of Superman show, kind of resetting the stage.
And this darker, more complex approach led to some standout episodes, I gather.
Oh yeah, some really ambitious stuff for the time and budget. There was a two-parter, Roads Not Taken. Luthor and Superboy traveled to alternate realities.
Like parallel universes.
Exactly, including this really chilling one that was basically run by Nazis with an evil Superboy who literally kills for pleasure.
Wow, that sounds intense. Shades of stuff like Superman, Red Sun years later.
Totally. Then there was Mind Games, which was a classic bottle episode, you know.
Yeah, mostly one set to save money.
Right. Superboy and Luthor trapped together in a mine with kryptonite around. It forces them to actually talk, and it somehow builds this sense of empathy. There's even a moment where Luthor spares Superboy's life.
Unexpected alliance, kinda.
And maybe even more impactful was Know Thine Enemy. Superboy literally goes inside Luthor's mind into his abusive childhood memories.
It's understand him.
Yeah, allowing the audience to understand his actions and empathize with the character. Pretty sophisticated stuff.
It really sounds like it. They were pushing the envelope.
Definitely. There was also To Be Human, focusing on Bizarro, kind of a Bizarro version of Flowers for Algernon, about his journey to understand humanity, and The Golem, a story about bigotry and unchecked violence.
So these later seasons, it sounds like they were less about the big action spectacle.
Which they couldn't afford anyway.
Right. And more focused on story, on character.
Exactly. J.M. DeMantis, who wrote some great episodes, he called working on the show a kind of mini film school because the limitations forced them to be clever, to focus on the writing.
Okay, so the show finds its footing creatively, hits 100 episodes, which is huge for syndication, right? Guarantees reruns, usually.
Massive milestone.
But then it gets canceled, just like that. What happened? What's the story there?
Well, a lot of people involved point to politics.
Mm-hmm.
The prevailing belief is that DC Comics was gearing up to launch Lois and Clark, the new adventures of Superman on a major network.
The Dean Cain and Terry Hatcher one?
That's the one. And the theory is they didn't want Superboy to interfere. Didn't want brand confusion maybe, or just wanted a clean slate for their big new network show.
So clear the decks, basically.
That's the suspicion. Plus, there were ongoing legal fights over the Superman rights generally. The Salkinds were the process of selling the rights back to Warner Bros. Ilya Salkind himself said that once Warner Bros. Started causing problems, they basically had to stop after 4 seasons.
Man. So after all that effort getting to 100 episodes, it just vanishes.
Pretty much.
No.
And it really did vanish. For over 10 years, Superboy was just gone. No reruns to speak of, no official VHS, definitely no DVDs or streaming. It was like it never existed for a while.
That's wild. How did it ever come back?
Fan power, basically. A lot of credit goes to this one guy, Sam J. Rizzo. He launched one of the very first websites focused on the show way back in the late 90s, later started Superboy Legacy.
Just a dedicated fan site.
Yeah, but he actively campaigned, lobbied Warner Bros., really pushed to get the show released on home video.
Did it work?
Eventually. They put out season 1 on DVD in 2006, timed kind of with the Superman Returns movie. Sales were apparently disappointing, though. But the fans, Rizzo included, didn't give up. And finally, starting in 2012, Warner Archive began releasing seasons 2, 3, and 4, but only as manufacturer on demand.
So made to order, basically. Not a huge retail push.
Right. But it was available finally, mostly thanks to that fan persistence.
So thinking about it now, looking back, what is the legacy of Superboy? It flew under the radar for so long, but did it actually influence anything that came later?
I think its influence is bigger than most people realize, yeah. It definitely feels like a precursor to Smallville, you know, young Clark Kent figuring things out.
Shared DNA there, for sure.
Though, interestingly, the Smallville team reportedly never invited any of the Superboy cast for cameo appearances. Maybe try to draw a line, keep it separate.
Okay, what else?
Well, think about the talent. Kevin Kiner, who did the music for Superboy, he went on to score tons of huge stuff. Star Wars animated shows like The Clone Wars and Rebels, lots of DC animated movies and shows. He even snuck bits of his old Superboy theme into the music for the Titans series.
No way, that's cool.
And directors. David Nutter got his start there. He went on to direct massive episodes of The X-Files, Game of Thrones, like the Red Wedding episode.
Wow, okay. Big jump.
And writers like Stan Berkowitz, who worked on Superboy, became a key writer for so many acclaimed DC animated shows like Superman, the animated series, and Justice League.
So it was a real training ground.
Absolutely. And here's a wild one. During Superboy's run, Mark Jones and Cary Bass actually wrote a full script for a Superman V movie.
A fifth Christopher Reeve movie.
Well, that was the idea, starring Reeve, featuring Brainiac as the villain. Never got made, obviously.
Yeah.
But get this. They also pitched an idea for Superman the Sixth that involved Superman having superpowered twins.
Wait, like in Superman and Lois?
Exactly. Decades before that show existed. So yeah, Superboy was this incubator for ideas and talent in a lot of ways.
That's incredible. Such a hidden influence.
Right.
What about the actors themselves? How do they look back on it?
Their reflections are really interesting.
Mm.
John Newton, the first Superboy, he felt playing the character was kind of a teasing thing. Wished it had been called The Adventures of Young Superman.
Mm.
But he also saw it as a metaphor. All great stories are metaphors, he said. And Superboy was about living up to your potential, becoming more.
That's a nice take. What about Stacey Hyduke?
She seems really grateful, called it a crucial stepping stone in her career. And she talked about how working in Orlando, away from L.A., created this real family-oriented place on set.
Gerard Christopher, the second Superboy.
He definitely felt the weight of it, the historical significance. Said he felt powerful in the suit, even though it was apparently super uncomfortable. Thick spandex, wool cape, in the Florida heat and humidity.
Ugh, sounds awful.
Yeah. But he also mentioned trying to bring a comic element to Clark Kent, like Chris Reeve did. And later on, he actually got a producer credit, so he felt really involved.
And Lex Luthor, Sherman Howard.
He said he feels weirdly honored to have his own little niche in pop culture history as that version of Lex.
That's cool.
And Tracy Roberts, Darla, she said she still wears a Superboy pendant, sees it as a symbol of confidence, love, power, compassion, and respect. Says it gives her super strength.
Wow, she really carries it with her.
You can almost hear the genuine feeling behind it, Overall, the vibe you get from the cast and crew is this real sense of camaraderie and a strong belief that the show was genuinely ahead of its time.
And maybe better than it is remembered for being.
Exactly that.
So we've done this deep dive into Superboy, a show that, yeah, it had its issues, its challenges, definitely flew under the radar for a long time, but it was also really ambitious.
Incredibly ambitious for its time and place.
Surprisingly complex sometimes, and clearly a really important stepping stone for a lot of people who shaped the superhero stuff we watch today. It sounds like a production that was constantly, as they put it, fighting the balance between the creative end and the production end.
And against the odds, it often managed to succeed, at least creatively.
Which kind of raises a question, doesn't it? When you look at the absolute explosion of superhero movies and TV shows today,
Right.
huge budgets, amazing effects.
Wall-to-wall content.
What can we maybe learn from looking back at something like Superboy about what's really at the heart of these stories, beyond the spectacle, beyond the budget?
That's a great question. What's the core that resonates?
Maybe we'll leave you with this thought. In a world that's always looking for heroes, maybe the sort of raw, even kitschy charm of a forgotten show like Superboy maybe reminds us that believing a man or a boy could fly doesn't always need the biggest budget. Maybe what it really needs is the biggest heart and just that sheer will to tell powerful stories, even ones that push boundaries.